welcome everybody to the channel. Here at Stranger Fruit, we provide Black and minority medical professionals the space to share fruits of wisdom, knowledge, and vulnerability in hopes that it can help you create a seed in your life and the lives of those around you. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning for more fruit, I am so glad we could provide something meaningful to come back to. Welcome to the final episode of Stranger Fruit. From season 1 to now, we've explored everything from growth to grit, from bearing pain to harvesting joy. But today we turn inward and ask a simple yet powerful question. What is the fruit of your life? Fruit is the outcome, the evidence, the result of all the tilling, all the planting, all the watering. But here's the thing. There are many kinds of fruit. The fruit of your labor, the fruit of your soul, the fruit of your community, and the fruit you leave behind for others. Today we're joined by someone whose journey has bloomed into something beautiful. Not just through achievement, but through intention and authenticity. A future INOVA Pediatric Resident, current fourth-year medical student at Howard University, and phenomenal student of theology. Welcome to the show, Ansari.
Thank you for having me, bro.
Yeah, man. Thank you for coming in once again. I mean, man, I feel like this is truly just like a beautiful journey. I know we talked about it before, but day one, we were in the same PBL together, taking quizzes together, and now 4 years later, so how when you think about this year, just overall, how do you how do you describe it? How do you describe the journey overall for you?
You know, I was talking to my family about this a while back. Me and my wife were sitting down, and I was thinking, this is my 23rd year of school.
Yeah.
I did a master's in between, and then there were a couple of gap years. And I thought, 23 years of culmination, and it comes to this moment, and it's very bittersweet. I think ending your journey of being a student, like a professional student, and entering the workforce is very scary. But it's also, a huge blessing to be able to do this thing that you dream of when you're, 5 or 6 years old. And my dad's a physician, so I saw him growing up, I saw him working with different people. He's also a pediatrician, and I would say that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be like. So to see hey, I was 5 and I wanted to do this, and now I'm 29 and I'm finally here. I think it's a huge blessing, and I'm very, very grateful for it.
That's amazing. And it's just truly, like you said, I think culmination is such a key word for this whole experience, because it's not just, I feel like I always say this all the time in a lot of different episodes of just conversation. But it's not the beginning or the end. It's just all the days in between, all the work we have to do.
That's right.
And so I'm just grateful to share this moment with you.
Man,
grateful to have this conversation. Hopefully we can culminate some special fruit.
I agree.
And so I guess to get this started, as a quick icebreaker, what is your favorite fruit?
I had it last night.
Okay.
So mangoes. I love mangoes. So I don't know if you've been to South Asian countries or you got South Asian mangoes, but we pride ourselves more so with anything in our culture. Our fruit, our
really,
mangoes. And we have 20 different types. Every single one has a different type of flavor. Everyone has a different type of name. And my dad's an expert. He'll go to the store. He'll be like, "This is a different type." So all these different types of mangoes. I'm like, "Bro, I don't know what you're talking about," but they taste good.
Right.
But I think for me, mangoes, the way we eat them in our culture is we cut them open and you dice the actual fruit, and then you leave the pit. So it's a communal fruit. Someone eats the pit. Someone eats the actual inside of the fruit. Someone takes the skin and uses the skin and eats the skin.
Wow.
And so it's whenever we have mangoes in our culture, it's not a person eating it alone.
Yeah.
Right? Whenever you're eating it together.
Right.
So I think for me, I think everyone's very close to their family. Everyone has connections with their family, but who I am and what I'm able to do and the things that I think I have been prepared for in my life are just because of my family. I think my wife, my parents, my brothers, they're able to offer me something so big that when I go out into the world, I'm like, I can deal with this because I got people rooting for me.
Right.
I have people to share those mangoes with.
Right.
And I think that is something super special. And I think the fruit itself is so sweet.
Yeah.
It's succulent. It grows in very different types of environments and temperaments. And so it in of itself, it's a fruit that shows hey, wherever I am, wherever I can be, I'm good. Fine, and I'll offer that sweetness to other people around me.
Ooh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I really just like the idea of the communal aspect of it, because a lot of times we find ourselves and it kind of is a perfect segue to what we just talked about, the cultivation.
Yeah.
A lot of people, you feel like you get to the top of the mountain and it's just you, but in reality it never was.
Yeah.
It's about sharing this fruit of whatever your kind of from the cultivation of whatever work and whatever harvest you've been able to do to be able to share it with the people that are closest to you and help you get there.
100%.
Right, so that's beautiful, and I feel like I gotta try all these different mangoes. That
100%.
oh man,
You've never had a good had a South Asian mango.
Okay.
Right now.
Okay, yeah, man, that's awesome.
Don't let these Florida people, trick you.
Because I'm not gonna lie, I literally was like, he said how many mangoes, and then because I'm thinking there's only like one.
There's like 20, 30 different just types of mangoes in just our like area of Pakistan. There's more in India, there's more in Egypt, and everyone's beefing each other like, our mangoes are the best. And I'm like, you don't know.
Yeah. And then you said, how does he know when?
So like, when the fruit is ripe, like usually they're like dark green, and then once they start, and what's really interesting about mangoes is they're not one color uniform. So like they'll be red in some edges, some brown in some edges, red and like orange and yellow in some other edges. So as they ripen, the color changes very differently, and the shape of the mango, like the texture of the mango on the outside, how soft it is, you can tell like what kind of mango it is. And some are sweeter, some are like a little bit sour, so they all have different types. So I think like that mango is just a work of art.
Yeah, man, and it's crazy because what you said was a little profound. Well, not a little profound, it was profound, right? Because the thing is you said like when it's ripening and growing, and I'm sure it's like with a lot of other different fruits, you have a change, you have a softening, right? And I think a lot of us, in reality, it's almost the opposite. I think we look at like a softness as a sense of weakness, or vulnerability as a sense of weakness. But in reality, it's what shows what we've been through.
100%.
So that's beautiful.
I think so. We talked about like being a student of theology.
Yeah.
I feel very close to my faith. I think learning about different faiths is very important, and then also understanding your own. And there's a statement of the prophet where he said, kindness does not enter anything except that it makes it more beautiful. So like the more kind you are, the softer you are with people, the softer you are with your patients, your parents, your wives, your children, your spouses, whatever. You will find beauty in those relationships, and you'll unlock something so special that if you have harshness or have difficulty, you'll never be able to unlock that flavor. You'll never be able to unlock that connection. And I think that's something very special I learned from my parents.
Wow.
I was talking to my mom a couple weeks ago, and I was like, this is the first time I've spent like extended periods of time away from home. 4 years been a little bit more, a little busier than I expected it to be.
And you're from here, right?
Yeah. And so I would be away for like 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and I would come home like, yeah, I miss you guys. And then my mom said, why do you miss us? And I was thinking about that, and I was like, when I was a kid, and my parents would tell me to do a chore, and I did the chore, they would be like, you did such a good job. Thanks for throwing the trash away. Thanks for cleaning the table, right? And I thought, these are things that are expected of me. I'm supposed to do them, right? But just doing them, they treat it like it was like the biggest thing ever. And so when you have little wins that are celebrated and you feel that connection with your parents or your family, you feel like a certain level of closeness that can't be replicated other places. So especially like relationships, like having that kindness or that warmth, that someone has a tough day, they can come to you and speak to you, and then it's reflected because you do it for them. Any good human being then reflects it to you.
Right.
So I think that kind of idea of softness and kindness, I think a lot of people have to go through life a little bit and encounter like harsh people or harsh realities to recognize that, hey, being soft and being kind is actually it's way harder than being harsh.
Yeah.
It's very easy to be like standoffish and mean to people. It's very difficult to be kind.
Yeah.
But that's why the fruits of kindness are much greater.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And one of the things you said is, and I found this like kind of the same. I found myself in the same place when you were talking about you going home and you seeing your family, especially when they came for graduation. Yeah. I've never felt such a strong desire to want to like move like close to home, because it was just the energy, and I couldn't explain it. Yeah. Just being around my family, and I was like, I feel like this is what I've been missing in my life, because these last 3-4 years, like it's like you call them on the phone, but it's nothing like kind of being there, having a house full of like your people, and they're just they're telling you the things that you probably should tell yourself, but are hard to like, for you to accept. And so that's a question that I have for you, is that how do you find tap into that family within when they're maybe 50 miles an hour, 50 miles away, 100 miles away, and you have to be kind to self, because sometimes that's the hardest thing to do.
That's a really good question. And I think I've only had the opportunity like a very few times in my life. I haven't been away from my family for an extended period of time. It's actually like the first time I'm like properly moving out for residency, and I'm only gonna be an hour away, and I was like, dang, bro. But I think what really helps is, I think this connection with your family, especially with like your spouse, it's only cultivated by you putting in the effort. And I think as our parents are getting older and our siblings are getting older, and they're going on to their lives, their professional lives, I think being very, very like purposeful about maintaining a connection that's not superficial. So like I think one thing that I know is going to happen. I think about like the future a lot. I think what's going to happen when I have a patient, especially I'm going to pediatrics, that they pass away.
Right.
How am I going to deal with this? Because
Right.
I feel like I'm an emotional person, and it'll be something that'll like hit me a lot. And I know when my first patient passed away on me, I was with a couple of our classmates, and I remember how it really affected everybody a lot. And it didn't hit me until I got back home to my family. It's like that's crazy. Like I didn't feel comfortable being comfortable with my own emotions until I was in a place where someone could like console me or comfort me. I was here and I was fine, and then I go home and I think I was like, dude, I think you crash out a little bit. And then, but I think like when you leave home, calling them and maintaining a connection like on a daily level is so important for yourself and for them. And then knowing that you're a doctor now, your parents put in a lot of effort to make you who you are.
Yeah.
And you being a doctor is actually like a product of the love your parents showed you. So when you have a tough day at work, you tell yourself, hey, like I was able to do this because people really love me. Like I may not be very good at it right now. Like, it's not great, but I'm here because like, yo, these people like they helped me out, they supported me, like, you know, monetarily, financially, but also emotionally and spiritually. So reminding yourself that in that moment you may be feeling really down, but you've had decades of people building you up, and to honor what they've given to you, you have to keep trying, and you have to keep going back and connecting with them. So I think being purposeful and like very, very like not superficial with that connection is going to be the most important thing going forward.
Okay, I like that a lot. And one of the things that it's funny because one of the episodes and the first episode of the final season is consistency, and we talk about that and being consistent. And I think one of the things that I failed to mention there, I'm glad we're mentioning it here, is the consistency of relationships.
Yeah.
And being able to kind of continue to tap back in. Sometimes, you know, it's going to be hard to, you know, after you've had a 24-hour call or whatever, to call your mom or to call your dad, you know. But like that, sometimes I think what pushes me to do things and get out of that mindset is that there's a version of you that exists on the other side of that, and you would never know who that is, and never have that relationship. And continue to grow, continue to evolve without you taking that step and saying, I'm gonna call. Like we were watching home videos, like when everybody came from 20 years ago. I was like one. I was like, I remember that day. No, just kidding. But it was funny because I was like, all of the people that were in these videos, a lot of them had passed away. And I'm looking at the videos and I'm like, imagine if for whatever reason all these people didn't come together for this moment and wasn't caught on camera.
That's true.
You know? And so I think about that and I'm like, you know,
they made an effort to be there.
Yeah.
Right? Because of their effort, you're able to reflect on this 20 years later.
Yeah.
And that's us every day.
Yeah.
Like when there's family gatherings or those things that are happening, you really don't want to go. But you're like, you know, 20 years from now, my kids might be watching this.
Yeah.
My nephews and nieces might be seeing me being happy and, you know, enjoying time with my family. That may be something for them to think about.
Exactly.
So everything you do when it's done deliberately, like it has like a rippling effect. It's like that seed, like you were talking about. You plant that seed, you know, like these dandelions are spread as weeds all throughout the world. Some wind comes, pushes the seed into a random place, and it grows into this weed that ends up looking beautiful. Right? It's not, even if it's not intentional, but if it's done with a little bit of sincerity, it becomes something really, really beautiful.
Wow. And I think that goes to, almost you answered your question about how you think you will react with here, like, you know, a child passing, because you come into it with intentionality and sincerity that only something can be the outcome.
That's true.
And I know that, you know, when you look back on it, or when you're in the moment, it doesn't feel like there's beauty there, but there in everything in life and in death there's beauty.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the first patient that passed away when I was with, we were called as a Code Blue. We were the on-call team that day. It was like my second or third week on medicine, my second or third week on floors. And it was me, and then we had some students, I don't know if they wanted me to share their names, so I'm not going to. But we went and we did CPR, and unfortunately the patient passed away. And I remember it was like a mid-70s elderly African-American woman, and she was wearing a ring on her finger. And I didn't notice until we left. And one of the interns on the team with us was actually a psychiatry resident who was doing his like medicine like rotation. And he sat us down afterward. He's like, so how do you guys feel? Like, what did you guys feel right now? Do you need to talk about something? Which I thought was very kind of him. Like he noticed that some of us were struggling. It was our first time ever seeing someone pass away in front of us. And you know, like when you're doing CPR, and you're doing an elderly patient, like, you know, they have osteoporosis, and you're doing CPR, and you're cracking ribs. You feel like things are changing. And so I think like when you read about it, it's different. And then when you're there in the moment and you're actively looking at someone's face you're trying to circulate the blood using your hands, it's very sobering.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, this like a time will come when I'm also gonna pass away, and a time will come where my family will probably be, hopefully, be near me. And I thought like this person passed away, went out, and then things kind of became robotic for a second. I think the charge nurse came and said, you know, what do we do right? And we talked about things we did right. What do we do wrong? What could we do differently? And I remember we were right outside the room, and the patient was in the room, and she was uncovered. So I kind of went back into the room, and I covered her, and I put like the sheets over her body. And I remember doing this one thing where, like in the movies, you know, when someone passes away, you close their eyes. Her eyes were still open.
Right.
So I went to go close her eyes, and I think rigor mortis had already kind of set in only in the eyelids, and I tried to close her eyes, and they just opened it again. And that was very sobering for me. I was like, dude, this is crazy. And after we left, one of the students with us, she was like, you know, she was wearing a ring. I don't know if her husband's alive, and that became like a very emotional conversation of like end of life and living your life in a way that like those who you love want to spend those moments with you. Her family had just left for a little while. She had passed away during that time, so it was very difficult. And I think at that moment, in the moment, like when you're there, your training kind of kicks in. Even though I didn't have experience doing it before, I had read about it so much, or I'd seen it before, that it wasn't something that was like overwhelming to the point that I couldn't function.
Right.
Which was actually like a vote of confidence, I think, in the training that Howard provides us. But then afterwards, when I went home and I reflected on it, I was like, yeah, this was really deep. Seeing someone pass away is not some kind of small thing.
Right.
As physicians, we have to have this careful balance where we are not affected by it too much, but we don't reach a level where it doesn't affect us at all.
I see.
And I think becoming apathetic to sickness and death is one of the worst things that can ever happen to a physician. And it was actually a little while after that my grandfather also passed away.
Wow.
And so when we talk about bearing, like this episode, like the topic is to bear things. I think my grandfather, he was an extraordinary human being. He actually grew up in a palace in India. His grandmother was one of the duchesses of Bhopal. So they had this huge, like 30, 40, like bedroom mansion in the center of Bhopal. And his father was a very rough man. And my grandfather's mother passed away when he was very young. He lost his younger brother and his mother to a plague that had entered their city in India. And his dad married a second wife after his mother passed away, and she treated him very badly. And all of his stepsisters, they really treated him badly. They actually took his inheritance when my great grandfather passed away. So he ran away from home at 14. And it was during that time where the state of Pakistan was created. Pakistan, when it was created in 1947, had no infrastructure. There was no government, there was no buildings, it was just like land.
Right.
And he left India and he emigrated to Pakistan. He slept on the floor for like random outside streets. He would just sleep there. And what he would do for money is he would go while they were building buildings and stuff. He would find straw on the street and he would turn it into a broom. And he would go into like little shops and like broom the shopkeepers' floors. And one shopkeeper felt really bad for him. He was like 15 years old. He's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You know, I just emigrated here. I left my family. There was nothing for me back home, so I wanted to come and start anew." So he gave him like this small little bedroom in the shop. He would sleep in the shop and he would clean the shop for his like payment. And he built himself up from there.
Wow.
He actually entered the Pakistan Air Force. He actually went into education, became an electrical engineer, and ran some of the largest like factories in Pakistan.
Wow.
And like different departments. He worked in appliances. He worked in aviation, and you know he worked so hard. And then my dad became a doctor because of his hard work.
Wow.
He bore so much, and then when he came here, I remember like we were reflecting on him. I actually just visited his grave yesterday with my family, and so we were thinking about like what was it about my grandfather that made him so special? And there were two things that I could really point. One was he was always optimistic. He saw so much like harshness in his life and so much difficulty in his life, but it didn't change him.
Right.
I think it made him very soft, and that softness came out in like being so optimistic and happy. And I remember, like, he taught me how to drive. He raised me. He taught me the Arabic language. Like, we read our holy book in Arabic. He taught me how to read and write Arabic.
Wow.
And he spoke 6 languages fluently.
Wow.
So he was like this genius of a man, and he didn't let his circumstances stop him. But he found a lot of like meaning in helping people that were in the situation that he was when he was younger.
Right.
So when he had established himself, he would like walk to work like 10 or 12 miles. Like this was when he was like 17 or 18. He finally got a job. He would walk to work 12 miles, like 12 kilometers every day. He would walk. And when he would one day while he was walking to work, he had also joined like a schooling system that the Pakistan Air Force had provided for him so that he could get a degree. And he would walk and he would notice this like 4 or 5 year old kid. Or maybe he was like 7 or 8. I don't remember the exact age correctly. And he would just be sitting outside and playing. My grandfather said, "You know, what are you doing? Why aren't you in school?" And this kid was like, "My parents can't afford school for me." He's like, "I just come out and I sell little things so that I can support my family." So my grandfather said, "Where are your parents?" So he said, "My parents live in this place." So my grandpa said, "Take me to your parents." So he went to his parents and he's with this little kid. He's like, "If you allow him to continue going out and doing these things, it'll ruin his life. He won't have any opportunities. So he said, every day I'm going to go to work. When I walk back from work, I'm going to pick him up. He's going to come home with me and I'm going to tutor him. And decades later, maybe like 25 years later, my dad was like 15 years old. My dad was 15 years old, and my grandfather was at a bank, and as he was exiting the bank, this guy ran after him, and he knocked on the car window, and my grandfather put the window down. He said, how are you? How's everything? And then he showed him a ring. He's like, I got married. And then my grandpa was like, how's everything going? He's like, everything's good. He's like, thank you. So he left, and my dad's 15. I was like, who is this guy? Like, what is he talking about? My grandfather was like, oh, he's the manager of this bank. He runs all the banks in the area, and he's the kid that I used to tutor on the streets.
Wow.
And I used to he's like, from 8 years old, I believe, all the way till metric, which is like 10th or 11th grade. He tutored him every single day.
Wow.
In maths and science, whatever. He got him into an economics like program.
Wow.
And became this like regional banker. And this is like one story of hundreds. Like when my grandfather, he took it upon himself when he came. My dad came to America in '94 or '93. Within 6 months, my grandparents moved in with them.
Wow.
So it was my dad, my mom, and then my grandparents. And we're living in a one-bedroom apartment.
Wow.
And my dad had just started residency, and this was like '94, '95, so salary wasn't anything crazy.
Yeah,
One bedroom.
ours worse.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then me and my older brother were born too. So 6 of us in like a one-bedroom apartment. And then they would take care of us, and like he was like my second father. My grandmother was like my second mother. Like my parents would be so tired with 2 little babies, and me and Miles were 11 months apart. So it's like you would sit in the house. My dad would come home, be tired. My grandparents would take me and my older brother, say, you guys go sleep. We're going to take care of them. So they would help us and stuff like that. But like he came to America, and he would pick me up. He took it upon himself in our house. He's going to do all the groceries. He's going to pick us up from school, drop us off from school. So we never rode the school bus. My parents, even though they were very busy, we always had someone to come, like be at school with us and whatever. And so I remember like in elementary school, he would take us from school and back from school. And not one day, like hundreds of days, he would see homeless people walking on the street. And he's like, put your window down and ask them how they're doing. And ask them if they need a ride. So I would be sitting in the back, and he would make me put the window down, and then reach out to the person. He said, don't call them hey or yo. Say, hello sir, hello ma'am, how are you doing? Can we help with anything? Can we like give you a ride? And so he would say, scoot over, and they're gonna sit next to you, and we can take them where they have to go. So that was the kind of like mindset that he had, because he bore so much in his life. He knew that he was only able to get to these places because people around him saw that he was suffering.
Exactly.
And they offered that.
Wow.
So he's like, that's our job. He's like, he's like, God has given you too much to keep it to yourself. You need to go and help people. And so I think that changed everything for me.
Yes.
And growing up with that kind of influence of like, you are bigger than just yourself. You know, you have a greater purpose here. You have to help people. You have to be of service to those around you. Growing up with that and not having any other alternatives, I think really changed the way I approach life. And I'm very blessed to have like him as my mentor and my parents as my teachers. So.
Wow. That's beautiful. That was beautiful, Troy. I mean, I appreciate you sharing that about your grandfather, because I don't know. I started to kind of get a little emotional, because I'm thinking about just the ripple effect of like his, not only his impact, but the impact that the shopkeeper had.
Exactly.
And
exactly. It continues.
The power of kindness, like we talked about.
Yeah.
Like it's like, you know, it sounds good on a Hallmark card, but when you hear it in practice, it's one of those things. It's like, because you think about it, it's like, imagine who your grandfather could have been had that shopkeeper not been there.
Exactly.
And then who would the manager of the bank had not been, and then all the people that he's impacted.
100%.
It's just, wow. That's just special. And it's like, that's the thing, right? Because a lot of times I think we take kindness for granted a lot of times, and we have to continue to fight to be kind and
100%.
push through, all of the things that are, and that's the kind of, I personally think it's kind of one of the things that the challenges in the journey of life is pushing through whatever feelings that you have, whatever of kind of internal kind of conflict there is, in order to kind of rise above and provide for those in need. And I think a lot of times, that's why it's, the beauty isn't in the, I don't know, I'm now rethinking life, because in my mind I'm like, the beauty isn't necessarily in the end goal and the destination. It's just all the moments, all the things in between, and this is what they're about. This is what it's about, because it's the little things, right? Like, you gave the homeless man on the street food for the next week or whatever, and now because of that, there's a possibility that he owns the McDonald's he was sleeping at.
That's right.
So,
and I think that understanding that you have the capacity, especially when you're given privilege, and I don't mean to like speak about this in like platitudes, but like being given something is like, so I mean, I believe in a higher power, right? So I
Right.
believe in something greater than myself.
Right.
I believe in God. I believe that God does things. We have a verse in the Quran which says God does not create without purpose, right? God's too great to do things like a million hours just doing things. He does things for a purpose. So he gave you something.
Right.
He gave me the ability to have this education and to be able to do something with my life. And we are blessed to live in a country that physicians are well compensated.
Right.
So what am I going to do when I've been given these things? Am I just going to hoard everything, keep it to myself? Or with this privilege, here it comes, with great power comes great responsibility.
Right.
It's true. And with
Yeah.
great privilege comes great responsibility.
Right.
And so to take what you've been given and then spread it wherever you go, and it doesn't matter who is, if that person's kind to you or not, that person's mean to you or not, they may still mean some of that kindness that you have. And I think that kind of intentional living makes you the best version of yourself because you're constantly fighting with your lower desires. I can be mean, I can be unkind, I can do crazy things. No, but you can do great things. You can do kind things. You can do beautiful things.
Right.
So when you, I think, have that intentionality of life and understanding. I mean, for me, people get upset sometimes when we talk about like doing things for like because of religion, and they say things like, you know, you only do things because there's punishment. But I think for me, it's like I do things because I was given the opportunity to do that. Right. If I didn't have this opportunity, the good that I could have done would have been very different. Like the degree to which I could have done good would have been very less.
Right.
So that I've been given this by God, or you know, whatever people believe, I have that responsibility now. From the appreciation to God is to give it and spread it amongst people that may not be given that kind of blessing. And for me, I think that like we're talking about seeds and we're talking about fruits, and I think it's a very beautiful kind of metaphor. It fits, I think, in all types of like ways of life, whatever religion you follow. But my mom often says to me, there's a little phrase in Urdu, which means this world is a fertile land for the hereafter. Whatever you plant here and you give here, right, you will find it when you reach God. And I think we actually have a concept in our religion that whatever money you have, so we are required to give 2.5% of our wealth every single year to charity. And who it can go to are people that are hungry, people that are traveling, people that are in debt, to basically have a communal obligation to take care of your weak, to take care of your vulnerable.
Right.
That's a religious practice for us.
Wow.
And so for us, like, we believe that what we have, like, when the Pharaoh died, he died with mountains and mountains of gold, and all of it was buried with him. When it reaches God, none of it's going to matter. Right? None of it's going to remain. But when we die, and the things we gave in charity, we'll find. But the things we kept for ourselves, they're not going to be there. So giving is actually receiving, right? And it's not selfish, it's forward thinking, and then you do it in such a way that what you're doing in that moment, you're doing for that person. And I think living your life in that way gives it a lot of meaning. And entering medicine with that kind of idea that I'm here to give, I'm not here to take,
Right.
I think makes you an excellent physician.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, excellent physician, excellent person.
Yeah.
And for those who aren't religious, who aren't not necessarily religious, but who aren't going into the field of medicine, taking some of that, I think we can create impact in ways
100%.
we could ever imagine, even from a physician standpoint.
100%.
And I think there's something that you talked about, and I would love to hear your thoughts on, is like this, for those who do believe in religion, like, who is God to you? Because in my mind, I think I'm in this journey in my life where, God in of itself is love in my life, and I found through my spiritual journey that I felt like I was close to God, and then I was far away, and I didn't really have that relationship. Oh,
Sorry.
no, you're fine. Sorry. What was it? Oh yeah, didn't really have that relationship with God, and now it's to this point where, because I'm, I feel like I've grown a closer relationship with my fiance, grown a closer relationship with my family.
Yeah.
Like, God is love, and any way that I can, love my family, love my neighbor, in the way that's pure and intentional, that is God.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just someone who is like who is student of theology, and like is very connected to his God. Like, who is he? Who is God to you? And how? And I remember you did say like what role he plays in your life, but
I think so. For me, God is definitely love, right? But God, we believe in Islam, God has 99 names. He's not limited to those 99 names, but these 99 names describe who God is. So it's Allah, which means, it's like in Arabic, it's God. He's the one God, so we believe in one God, we're monotheists. He's Ar-Rahman, is the one that's merciful to every single creation. And Rahman comes from Rahim. Both of the words come from the womb of the mother. Like, the root word is Rahm, which is the womb of the mother. It doesn't care what's inside. And it'll give itself to support this new aspect of life, right? So it gives and it gives and it gives. it's the sustainer. But God is love, but God is also al-adl. He's the just. So more than anything, God is justice. So that means turning the cheek is not always a just thing to do, right? Forgiving isn't always the right thing to do. So when people commit like genocide or they commit crimes, I don't say God's love, so you can do whatever you want.
Right.
I'm saying God's just, so I'm going to stop you from hurting people, and I'm going to help the people that you're hurting. So for me, I think God is who God says he is, which is, comes from scripturally, and I think people disagree about it to some degree. But ultimately, love is a part of who God is. And there is a verse where it says, God tells the prophet, say to the people, if you love God, then follow me. Follow like a pathway that leads to God. If you do Allah, God will love you. He'll forgive your sins. Well, love, and God is forgiving, and God is very merciful. So this whole idea of like, people have different paths they follow. I find this path that I follow to be the most intellectually convincing and the most spiritually convincing. But I think having an idea of a higher power and allowing that to affect the way you engage with the world, no matter what path it is, it makes you better, no matter what. I do think some paths are correct and some paths are incorrect, theologically.
Right.
But I'm never going to say to a person, you're bad or you're evil, right, because you believe in this way.
Right.
But I think it all brings you, in some way, I think all religions have some kind of essence of truth within them, and there's one religion that has all the truth. But these truths still make you better. They still make you good. They still make you be able to understand some aspect of God. And I think it's very difficult. And I think this is one of the things that led me to studying different types of religions.
Right.
So,
Because one question I do want to ask you before that, because
yeah,
I know you're about to go into this thing, and I'm going to get lost in this, and I'll forget this question. So how do you, I guess, when people say this idea that, well, if God is all knowing, all powerful, then why is there pain in the world? Why is
that's a good question.
All that? And so I don't know if that's like a segue into what you were about to say.
It's a good question. I think theologically we call this the problem of evil, right? So philosophically, philosophers from all times have always tried to deal with this question. And I think for me, really, it is this. God is all-knowing, and God is all-just. God is all-forgiving. And I cannot understand God because I am not on the level of God. I'm a creation, he's a creator. So we have a verse actually where this question comes up. So God tells the angels in heaven, I'm creating Adam, I'm going to create a human being. And the angels, knowing what the human beings are going to be like, they're like, are you going to create a thing, a creation, that's going to cause corruption in the world and spill blood? Like the angels ask God this, and God responds to them, I know what you don't know. I know things that you don't understand. He's saying this to the angels. So for me, I'm very comfortable with the fact that things happen in this world that I can't understand. I may think they're evil, but they may actually be something good in the great scheme of things. And the way I can say that is, for instance,
child gets cancer.
Yeah, child get cancer. Or like we have a prophetic saying where the prophet says, any believer that gets pricked by a thorn or feels sadness or feels anxiety, for every single thing that they're affected by, their sins begin to fall off of them. So there is a purpose behind things happening, and that purpose is beneficial for people, even though we may not understand it.
Right.
So one of the things, like my dad in 2014 had a really massive heart attack. We didn't know. We were very lucky that one of his close friends was with us, and he was the head of cardiology at Baylor.
Wow.
So my dad, he would just hang out with my dad, and then he sees my dad. He's like, you don't look good. And he's like, he was just visiting town for some meetings, and my dad invited him to his house. We're having breakfast together, and my dad's like, I'm having a little discomfort. He's like, go to the hospital right now. I went to Hopkins, and my dad was like 50 at that time, 52. Oh no, he was like 51. And I remember a fellow came in, cardio fellow came in. He was like, look, you're young, you're very healthy. Like my dad's a sports player, whatever. He's like, I don't think anything's going on. I think you might just have indigestion. They did a cath the next day, and 3 arteries, 80% blocked, 90% blocked, 75% blocked.
Wow.
They're like, you need urgent cabbage. And this one, they were still like the best practice at that point in time was still open heart. It wasn't even stents. So he had open heart surgery. And I remember when my mom heard that news, she collapsed. She was like, oh my God, that's crazy. We never expected it. And my youngest brother was 2 years old. So it was like, also very traumatic for him. He didn't like going to hospitals for a very long time.
Y'all scared him away from that?
Yeah, literally. And I remember years later, I reflect on that and I say, our family became so close because of those moments of difficulty. And we found faith all together as a group that we would have never found if that didn't happen. And I think we are better off with that having happened because of not only the material changes that happened in my life, but because God decided it. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And I think this isn't the perfect answer for a lot of people.
Right.
And I think it's one of those things I think you have to experience to be able to say, hey, this is what's happening, that's good. And this is why I believe that. And I think you have to have a certain conception of a positive idea about God to be able to do this. There are like intellectual arguments and things like that that also play a role into this. But for me, I think intellectualizing God too much makes you lose the personal connection with him. And talking about God's will or talking about God's intentionality is very difficult for me to do because I'm like, I'm the thing he created, and he's the thing that created me. And we have a verse in the Quran where it's like, you are asked about what you do, but he's not going to be asked about what he does. So it's the idea of like, there is a hierarchy. He's my creator, and I worship him in the way that he wants to be worshipped. But by worshiping him, I'm way better. And things that happen that I don't understand, I just say, God knows. Just like he told the angels, and I don't know. And I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And I appreciate you sharing that
Of
because,
course.
all of us, I feel like a lot of us, and, we come into the world with so many, I think, in a world that's constantly evolving, constantly changing. We never get the full picture of what is going on.
That's right.
And we get dropped in, in the 90s, and then all this stuff is happening. We still don't know what's going on. We're growing through this, trying to figure out, how our life is supposed to work, how it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And then we're still trying, and we're also trying to figure out ourselves. And so, just to be able to hear, the way that you've kind of developed this relationship and kind of how you see the world is beautiful. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I think this is honestly an amazing segue into the next part of this conversation, which is the fruit of the soul. And we talked about that.
Yeah.
He touched on it, but I want to kind of get a little bit deeper into it, which is, those intangible parts of ourselves that grow through experience.
Yeah.
The patience, the love we talked about, the joy, the kindness, the peace. And these are things that make life rich, even when the world outside of us feels chaotic, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about the fruits. When we talk about the fruits of the soul, we're essentially asking, what am I giving to the world, right? Yeah. And so what values, what energy, what presence do I bring my relationships, my work, and my community? And we talked about that. And so when you reflect on the journey, what fruit do you think your soul has become? And what are you most proud of planting in others?
That's a really good question. I think the soul is like a muscle, and it becomes like better the more you give it love, the more you give it confidence and like stability.
Yeah.
And when you're in moments of turmoil, it can revert back and it can atrophy a little. And I think when I reflect on like hard times in my life, and my grandfather passed away, and when he passed away, I think that was like a huge like big blow to our family. We lost like our patriarch and like someone that like had a connection with everybody in our family. But I realized like his legacy will live on through what we learned from him, and the more we continue to bring those fruits that he gave us and we give them to our children or to those around us, the more I will remember that this guy, he's still around, he's still here, and his love for the world and his love for people and his sincere intention and care for those who did not have much. Because he knew, he would say in the very beginning, I didn't do anything special to receive the blessings that I have. And he's like, and they didn't do anything wrong to not get it. He said, this is just God's, decree. And so we have our responsibilities to give it. And I think I'm proud of the fact that, like, I was raised in a household where my elders would teach me something that we were taught to accept it. And so when they would live through years, decades of experience, you have a teenager. I can't believe they said that. I can't believe they told me to do this. You have like someone that speaks to you like harshly or unkindly. You want to lay it on them, right? And they'd be like, no, let it go, forgive them. And I'd be like, they don't even know what they're talking about. If I do that, they're gonna do it more.
Right.
And you realize they're right. Sometimes they're wrong. Right. And that's the hard part.
Right.
To discern whether what is being told to you is good advice or not good advice. But they have more experience. And so that's still something I struggle with every single day.
And that's one of the things, right? Because it brings up a question. Because a lot of times I find myself questioning a lot of like how the world works. Because I just like us coming from like students, like us as students. I feel like even just even outside of medicine, like students of like life. And you want to like just learn as much as you can. And like, is there a place? Because you said something interesting. It's like there's a certain place or a certain level we just don't question.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's interesting to me. And do you feel like, or I guess like, why is that? Why is that something that you don't question? Yeah. And do you feel like it's better to not, or to like try to uncover that and what version of yourself would become if you were to be that?
I think you can question if you want.
Yeah.
A person can question.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to like, what are you comfortable with and what's going to help you? Some people ask so many questions that they end up hurting themselves.
Yes.
And we see those patients every single day. We have a certain set of principles and bioethical ideas, and we have knowledge of pharmacology, physiology, anatomy that allows us to look at a picture in a way that a patient could never understand, right? So when they come here and they come with an attitude, hey, like, what are you doing to me? Why are you doing it? I need to understand every single thing. They're coming from an idea and a background that's really worried about themselves and their knowledge and their quest. But the way they're going to be thinking about things, if we give them too much information, is going to drive them crazy. And I think about that, like, not the perfect example, but also like with God and myself. There's certain things I don't have knowledge of.
Right.
So when I try to conceptualize it, it's gonna make me crazy.
That makes sense.
So for me personally, because I know I don't know things, and I
Right.
know he knows everything, literally. So I'm like, why torture myself with that?
Right.
And if he says this way, I have trust,
Mhm.
and that's that's where faith comes. I can't see God.
Right.
I can't engage with him. I can't talk to him directly, right? But I feel his presence, and I do the things that I think he wants me to do. Being kind, praying, giving charity, doing these things, engaging with the world in a way that's the best version of myself, right? So when I follow that, I feel myself being better, and I feel that I'm able to help people around me. And so I think about in terms of what am I able to understand, what am I not able to understand? People have different approaches though. Some people may really need to understand intellectual arguments. That's their prerogative.
Right.
They can do so. And so I think it really comes down to individual experiences. But for myself, I don't think it cuts my growth by being able to do that. I actually think it makes me more comfortable growing even more. Because this is an intellectual exercise. It's not a practical exercise, right? What actual change on a practical level will enter my day-to-day life if I question everything? I actually think it'll diminish my growth.
Right.
And so for me, I'm comfortable in not knowing certain things, but there are certain things that I have to know. Those are the practicalities of life, right? So if I have a patient that comes in and they're very sick, I don't know what's going on, I have to ask questions. I have to go and ask my superiors. I have to do these things. Or if I have questions about what's the best way to help the community around, those things I have to do. But when it's intellectual exercise that are going to torture me, I'm like, bro.
Right.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Yeah. Wow. And and I feel like that's kind of, I guess, contributing, diversifying your fruits and the soul in a way that I personally didn't even think about. Because in my mind, I'm like, sometimes not having the answer brings about feelings of angst, right? But then having the answer makes you feel worse. And so in my mind now that I'm like, wow, that actually makes sense. Inaction is action.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
And so not having I don't feel the need or desire to want to seek that path and know who that version of myself is. Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Right.
Exactly.
And so, I personally think that, again, this has been, an amazing conversation. And, I think it's just a beautiful segue into this next part, which is, because when we, I think, bring about these and open these doors to these new paths of who we are, we also open the door to the things that we can, put onto others or give to others. And that's kind of goes back to the importance of kind of what we bring, what energy, what we provide to the world. Because sometimes I think unintentionally we do create, maybe some, I guess negative feeling in others, and put people in situations that you wouldn't have otherwise done. But it's those intentionality, right? Okay, I did wrong. I can change that. I can fix it. I can move forward. Yeah. But I think again it goes back to this whole thing we talked about. It's what kind of seeds are we planting? And so fruit, like we said, it nourishes now, but it's not just that. Yeah. It carries feed to the future. 100%. Right. And so many of us push ourselves every single day to just not succeed, but create something better for those who come after us. And I think that that's something that you embody. Yeah. And so what is something, and I know even I know you mentioned your grandfather and things that he taught you. And is there any other fruit that you are hoping to pass on to the next generation? Yeah. And how do we ensure that what we leave behind nurtures others? Because you did say what was from the Quran. Yeah. And so how do you make sure that what we leave behind nurtures others and creates more than just a more just and generous world?
I learned a lot from my grandfather, learned a lot from my parents. I also learned a lot from my wife. We've been married for a year and a half. And one of the things that I did learn from her was, actually, I learned from her and I learned from my dad. My dad's a pediatrician, right? So he sees a lot of families that are not ideal. And he sees the effects of broken parenthood or harsh parenthood or incorrect parenthood on the newer generation. And one of the things, he'll give some seminars and stuff on parenting. One of the things he often mentions is when you're in an airplane and they talk about what happens if the airplane's going down, they always tell parents, mask yourself first and then mask your children. This isn't about being selfish. It's that if you don't give yourself oxygen, you're not going to be able to give your children oxygen. If you don't take care of yourself, right, you can't take care of anybody. So the soul has to be ripened and the soul has to be prepared, and the only person that can do that work is you. People can give you a little bit of nutrition, a little bit of spiritual help, but they can't fix yourself for you. And I think this can be taken in two extremes, where one person is criticizing themselves left and right. Everything they do is wrong and they beat themselves up. And there's that other side that I'm seeing very commonly in our generation is treat yourself. You're suffering? Go crazy. Right. Go crazy. Give yourself whatever you want. Right. And there's a really healthy balance that has to be achieved. If you do something wrong, you accept it, you fix yourself.
Right.
And when you're doing something, you have a tough time, and you need to spend some time by yourself, you give yourself that space. And that balance, if you don't achieve it, then the fruits you'll give, like to the next generation, they won't be as perfect as they could have been. So taking care of yourself in a way that, you know, not everyone wants to be a parent, but you will have someone in your life that's going to look up to you. They don't have to be your child. They can be anybody.
Right.
And if you don't take care of yourself, you can hurt them. You could benefit them, but not as much as you have the potential to.
Right.
So I think when I think of things in the future, I think my first responsibility would be towards my family, right? And then my patients, and then community at large. And each of them deserve a piece of me. But that piece that I give them has to be the best version of myself. And I think that really comes down to like how you like hold yourself accountable. Self-accountability will be the cornerstone of being able to be a fruit for the future.
Right.
And I think pediatrics is a beautiful field to go into. I think for those of you that I'll watch later, you're younger and you're entering the field of medicine, pediatrics is great. But I think, you know, children are resilient.
Yeah.
Children are very, very capable. They're very, very smart. And if you give them the tools that they need to succeed, the love that they need, the confidence that they need, they will change the world. You don't even have to change the world. You just have to change yourself, right?
Wow.
And by changing yourself, you're able to offer something to hundreds of people that if you didn't do that work on yourself, they wouldn't have gotten. And there's a very famous line by one of the great poets in Arabia. I don't know the Arabic, but he basically said, "I have never seen a deficiency in man greater than contentment with mediocrity." He said the greatest deficiency I've seen in anybody is them being okay with being okay. Right? Be great.
Right.
Be excellent. And in the process of being excellent, you will make everyone around you excellent.
Wow, I like that. You said, repeat it one more time for the
Sure. The poem?
Yeah.
He said, "I have never seen a greater deficiency in man, like humanity, except or greater than contentment with mediocrity." I can send you the line later.
Yeah,
on.
please do.
Yeah,
Please do, and we'll drop it in the notes.
Sure.
And that's beautiful, because one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, you know, this idea of, we talked about, you know, the fruits of, you know, the next generation from, you know, our kids maybe in the future. But one thing, you know, I find fascinating a lot is the idea of love from, you know, partner. And, you know, you're married, and I'm engaged, and something that I always kind of find myself trying to do, because I want to be the best, you know, I want to be the best partner that I can possibly be. And I know you want to do the same. And you find, and I feel like, you know, after a while, you've been with someone, especially someone that you grow really close to, and or at least, you know, because I've been in, you know, relationships before, and I would point the finger and be like, you know, oh, these are the things that you should be doing, and I'm fine.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's like a reflection of like, oh dang, maybe like they're just existing, and I need to kind of figure out, why do I feel the way that I do? And we know like marriage isn't easy.
Yeah, it's not.
So like, what
That's
is?
a huge blessing.
Yeah. So how do you, I guess, figure out, because, you know, one of those things where I know it's in your religion to have like, where it's not it's arranged, right? Or it's not.
Basically, like, we don't have to have it arranged.
Okay.
But we don't have relationships before marriage.
Okay.
So I've never dated a girl. I never held hands, never kissed a girl.
Wow.
I married my wife, and everything like physical is after that.
Right.
And so I think it's very special actually, because you get to know the person before you engage in any kind of like physical connection with them. And I think that makes your connection very deep and very like, it's non-superficial. It's not based on like, oh, I want to engage with this person on a physical level, that's why I'm getting to know them. And I don't think it's wrong in all situations either.
Right.
But I think this type of relationship, I told my wife when we first got married, I hope she doesn't care I share this, but basically I told her, you know, I didn't get to choose my family. I didn't get to choose my parents, and I love them. I didn't get to choose my brother, and I love them. But I got to choose you, right? You are the only relationship in my life that I consider my family that I chose. Like, and you chose me, right? And so I think that kind of idea of deliberation, of love, because this is the one relationship in your life where you said, because of who you are, how you behave, your personality, I chose you to spend life with you, because you could not have chosen me and I could not have chosen you. And that kind of idea is very, 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 very like substantial, very significant.
Wow.
And there's a verse, another, where it says, it's from God's signs that he created you from yourself, mates, and he placed, and so he got you created, he created a spouse from you, and so that you can find peace in each other. And he placed mercy and love between you guys, right? That's it. Peace, love, and mercy. When you make those three your goals and you work on exemplifying them to the best, even if you don't feel like doing it, you gotta crush that ego and be like, I'm not fighting right now, right? And you find that mirrored, that kind of relationship is going to flourish in a way and make you so much better.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think especially being in medicine and having a spouse that's not in medicine, which I think is also the case with you, it's tough to explain to people what the grueling training of medicine. But when you have someone on your corner that's rooting for you and helping you and making your life easy when it's very difficult, that kind of love that comes from those acts of service and what you want to provide back then, like it's very beautiful.
Right.
And even when you don't receive it, you still have the responsibility to give love.
Wow. And so I guess then another question is, how do you feel about this idea of, because do you guys have the same where it's like vows, till death do us part kind of thing? And like, is that something that you fear? Is like, I mean, I chose you in this existence, in this space that I'm in right now, but 30 years from now, I could, you know what I'm saying? So, because I think about that and I'm like, oh, like sometimes like I know that this, like I truly like love this person. I want to be with this person forever in this current being that I'm in. But again, it goes back to that question thing. Is that something that you think about, or is that something that you're just, I made this choice and no matter what, I'm going to stick by it?
Yeah, I think so. Like in Islam, like as like a theological aspect of it, we can get divorced, right? We don't have like a prohibition on getting divorced, but it's disliked to do so, especially if there's no reason. But for me personally, I think that's like the theological, like law-based aspect. For me personally though, when I made this decision, because I was like, this is a person, because we believe we're not just married in this life, we believe we'll be married in the next life. So this was a decision that I believe like I made on like from like multiple aspects, on her material like existence, on her faith, on her personality. All of these things culminating to me saying, I can marry this woman and I can be with her for the rest of my life and I can be with her for the rest of my existence. So it's like, yeah, the option's there. Like if, God forbid things don't work out, these things can happen. Like we have allowance for it. But just because something is available doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And just because there's an easy way out doesn't mean you should take it out. And there is a very famous quote by one of like the major companions of the Prophet. His name is Unlearned. He basically said that this woman comes and complains to him about her husband. And she said, I asked him, do you love me as much as I love you? And she said no. He said no to her, which was really stupid. So he responded. He says, must every house be built on love? And that's true.
Right.
Love is a feeling. And the way we describe it, love is a feeling. But love, like the big L, that's behavior, personality, existence. And I think there's a verse where it says, that those who do good, they believe and they do good, right? Towards themselves, towards God, towards each other. God will place love between them. And I think that really comes down to when you do acts of service, acts of like community work together, and you see each other as the best version of yourself, not just when you're alone at home. Everybody else, that's going to build something very special. And so I think having a very like deliberate, I'm using that word a lot today, it really comes down to deliberation and like seriousness aspect of approaching your relationship and saying, look, things get hard, things get tough, that's okay, that's life, right? Bro, my parents have said great things to me. I said great things to my brothers, right? They're still my family. I'm not gonna say get the heck out of here. You're not anymore. I'm like, no, but I accepted her into my family. She accepted me into her family, right? So that idea that like I'm not gonna cut my family off. She's my family, so I'm not gonna cut her off.
Right.
So working through those things, I think, is really important. And then I think a really big part of this, where a lot of relationship coaches and stuff talk about this, is like this idea of the ego. You gotta crush that thing. Sometimes you're right, and sometimes you have to say, hey, I'm right, and you are wrong, and you have to accept it. And you have to have the ability to accept it, and the opposite's true. You are wrong,
Right.
and they're right. And you have to have the ability to crush your ego and say, they're right, and I need to accept this.
Right.
Because ultimately, and especially from a person of faith, we have a very famous narration where the prophet said, the best of you, the best of humanity, the best of the believers are those who are best to their wives. And I'm the best to my wives. So being good to your spouse, for us, is a sign of faith. And so if I'm not good to my wife, I have a problem like with my relationship with God, right? And so the opposite exists also, right? So like, we also have like narrations the prophet said, like a woman who prays her 5 daily prayers, does her obligations, and like engages with her husband well. She can enter paradise from any of the gates she wishes. So we believe there's 8 major gates of paradise. All of them will be open for her because she's good to her husband.
Right.
And he gets the opportunity to enter paradise because he's good to his wife. Like this relationship is not just like I married you. It's like I married you and God is my witness. I married you, and me being good to you is me being held accountable by God. So I think that also adds like a level of like this is serious stuff, right?
It is.
And so
that's fascinating. I really do like that, and then the amount of evolution that brings about that, because you're like through every argument, through every conversation, through every strife, there's a new version of you guys and new version of the relationship, new version of self. And I think that spans even beyond like romantic relationships, friendships, whatever, because relationships die based on the conversations that aren't had.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
And so it's like, because you're, like you said, you have to crush that ego. You have to, be able to say, you know what, like, I want so bad to say that I'm right.
Yeah.
I want so bad to do these things. I want so bad, but is that what's going to bring about the most evolution, the most growth, and the most happiness and joy in this right now?
Like, what's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Is the goal to make my partner feel bad? Because that's very easy. Right? That's super easy, right? And if there is a goal to make me feel bad, because it's super easy.
Right.
But if the goal is to make our marriage better, or our relationship better, then and we're both on that mindset, then you both have equal stake in this great building you're making, right? You're an investor and she's an investor.
Right.
And if you both do not put the investment that this building needs, it's gonna crumble and you're both gonna suffer.
Right.
So what's the goal? Like, you're trying to make sure this structure, this foundation is strong. So you need to give money, time, effort, happiness to make this edifice strong.
I like that. So when she says, well, how does your dress make you look fat? No, dear. No. But I feel like that's just an amazing segue into this part of the conversation. One of my favorite segments, planting the seed, in which we have a quote that embodies we're gonna now move to the next segment.
Sure.
Called planting the seed, in which we have a quote, which guests provide a quote that embodies today's topic. So, Horace, what is a quote that embodies what kind of fruit you want your life to bear, and why?
I'm gonna go back to the Quran. There's a chapter about the chapter of Abraham, and in the chapter of Abraham, there's a quote that God gives. He says, "Have you not seen how God compares or makes a good word like a good tree, and that tree is firm, and the branches that tree has, they reach the sky, and on those branches, God is always causing fruit to fall from them, and it reaches whoever He wants." So, like, good actions, like, they make a seed. That seed makes a tree. That tree has branches, and those branches bear fruit. Like, we talked to my grandfather's story, the connection made with the banker.
Right.
He was only able to receive that because my grandfather received support from a shopkeeper decades, right? And to think that you have this one little thing, like a good word is nothing. Saying kind speech is not hard, but that kind speech becomes a tree, and that tree becomes large, and it stabilizes the ground, and it bears fruit, and that fruit reaches wherever it needs to reach. So I think this, to me, is like the epitome of not belittling the good that you can do and the impact you can have. And I think this is common when we study like liberation theology, or we study like the changing of like countries and the efforts of justice. Like, Malcolm is one of my, like, honestly, my spiritual predecessors. I love Malcolm like I love my father, and I think the way he embodied justice, like, he didn't care what he said, how harsh it was, as long as it was true, right? And Malcolm showed the world that you can be harsh and be good, and you can be kind and you can be good. He had a balance that entered his world, his life, how he engaged with the world, that very, very few people achieve. And I think he embodies this. The kind of justice he aspired to for Black America and for Muslims in this country, and what he saw. So what happened? Malcolm had a very significant change. He was heavily associated with the Nation of Islam, and he traveled then to Mecca. Right. And in Mecca, he did the pilgrimage there. 2 to 4 million people come at one point in time, and they all wear the exact same clothes. They wear white clothes. All of them don't wear hats. They don't wear shoes. They just dress exactly the same. Black, white, doesn't matter. And he said, I went there, and I sat with people, white skin, blue eyes, and they would say, "You are my brother." And he said they would give me the plate of food, and they wouldn't eat, and they would make me eat. And they would say, "You are more deserving of it than we are." And he said the only thing that connected us was faith. And that changed the way he engaged with the concept of justice when he came back to the country. This was in 63, I think, like a year and a half before he was killed. Right. And when I think of like the kind of impact that I want to have on the world, I think of Malcolm. And I think of like he offered something, a feeling of strength, a feeling of wisdom, a feeling of confidence to Black and brown people in this country that they never had. But he rooted it in justice and faith. And I think that's exceptional.
Wow. That's amazing. And, it's kind of, because I'm very curious about this, because, there was a change. You said he went from the Nation of Islam. Did he, I guess, after that pilgrimage, change his religion?
So the Nation has like some aspects of theology that are not fully under Islam, but they're like Islam adjacent.
Got you.
So when he went to the pilgrimage, and this is mentioned in his autobiography, he came back and he became an Orthodox Muslim. Right. And so he did change a lot of the kind of theological beliefs he had, but it didn't change his politics.
Got you.
So his politics remained the same. and his efforts still remain the same. And I think that, like, it shows, like, you may have different paths in life, and you may enter like a different theological sphere, but the essence of justice is one.
Wow.
And I love Malcolm. I have a huge love for Malcolm. I think, may God have mercy on his soul. He was an amazing person. And I have a lot of love for Muhammad Ali too. I think they gave confidence to young people, and they showed them the path to change is not always by sitting and just speaking. Sometimes it requires some action.
Yeah. Wow. That's special. That's special. And, I feel like, this is, just an amazing, transition from, in this amazing conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about just like life, and I'm just grateful to be in this moment with you, and to kind of transition this into our final segment, to call it to Harvest and Ripen. And as a podcast, it's called Stranger Fruit. We like to end every episode with this segment. We'll pull a card from this game. We're not really strangers, not a sponsor, and answer it authentically.
But you should sponsor.
Great, yeah, you should. Even though this is the final episode, we would have truly appreciated if you did sponsor. But we're gonna answer authentically, harvest, ripen, a deeper meaning of ourselves and each other. And so I'll have you pull first, and I'll answer if it's red on back.
Okay. What lesson took you the longest to unlearn?
What lesson took me the longest to unlearn? Lesson took me the longest to unlearn. I think, the first thing that I would think about is just kind of, it kind of like is an overarching point of like this conversation, like the power of like our impact, and like the things that we can do in the world, and how much of that has a domino effect on so many people around us. And I think that a lot of times I think I would take that for granted, like, because I guess I just, you're just existing in these spaces, and you're just kind of doing your thing or whatever. Yeah, you're just going with emotions, and it's kind of one of those things that it's like now when I'm just kind of just even just in this moment right now, I just think about kind of how life is as it is, like how it is, but it's because of people, my parents, like we said, I'm here because of my parents' love, my parents' support, and I've been able to give that to someone else. And for hopefully I can continue to create and be intentional about the things that I'm doing every single day. And I think I'm realizing for these last couple months, even though it's like it's a time for rest, I would say, but like it's one of those things where I'm just like there's a lot more, I guess, impact that I could be providing. And I think like through this conversation I'm realizing that the power of that I think, I don't know if it was more of unlearn or more just learn more.
I can understand that.
So
it's kind of crazy. Dr. Kennedy.
You
are Dr. Kennedy.
Then listen, it's just crazy, right? Like
it is crazy.
It's like what are the things and what routines do I have in place to ensure that means something?
That's right.
And so
that's scary.
Yeah.
Because now we actually have like a very strong way of making positive or negative impacts on people.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to start getting up and and doing that. So I appreciate. That was a really good card. Let's see here. This is an interesting one. So it says, "What do you crave more of?"
Wow, that's a great question. I think on an individual level, understanding. I think I'm very blessed. My immediate family or like my immediate like support system understands me very well. I think understanding breeds a lot of like self-reflection, and also like it helps inculcate a very beautiful relationship. Like the more I think people understand me and the way that I function, like this conversation for me helped me understand you in a very special way. And I think we've been together for 4 years now, but I think this is the first time we had like this kind of deep conversation. So me understanding you helped me really like solidify something we've already had for a long time. And so I think understanding helps a lot. And also like I think being able to talk about the things that are important to me in a way, or what a space is given to do. So for instance, we talk about faith today. It's very central to who I am. But in this field of medicine, it's very difficult sometimes to talk about faith. So like one thing was like every day I have to pray 5 times a day. So I pray my first prayer around like 5 a.m. So I get up at 5, I pray. When I was in surgery, I would come to the hospital early, go to the chapel, I would pray, and then I would do my prayers for the day. I have another prayer at like 1 p.m., another prayer at like 5 p.m., then 7 p.m., and like 9 p.m. So all throughout the day, especially when I'm on call or there's different things, we're finally grounding, I have to pray because we have like a specific period of time we can pray it. It's very difficult to say, hey, like I gotta go pray. And people are like, what the heck are you talking about? So I think that understanding, if it's there, it can change the way we engage with each other as a society. Knowing like, people have dietary restrictions, religious restrictions, and then people have like, people have like non-religious reasons they do things. And you just say, okay, that's okay.
Right.
Like, I understand that you have something that's important to you, and to make you more comfortable in the space, we'll make accommodations.
Right.
So I think that is something that I definitely created. I'm thinking about like the conversations I'm gonna have with my PD. If I know I'm like, I have to pray during these things. So
Right.
what accommodations are available, or like what ways can I make up for if I miss some time?
Right.
And I am blessed, like coming to Howard, because Dean Rose, bro, God said whatever it came to, like religious observances or whatever, he was like, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. And coming to an HBCU, because we know, you guys know like what it's like
Right.
to not be understood.
Right.
We go above and beyond, and that kind of thing has entered my clinical practice, and I'm very, very, very thankful that 5 years ago when I got the acceptance letter, I was at Howard University.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
100%.
And that's amazing. I feel like, that understanding.
Yeah.
And I appreciate, because I feel the same way. Like, I think the more you can understand, the better, the more, I guess, developed I think these fruits become.
Yeah.
Right? And more diverse we are as people. And so I appreciate you, being here in this space
Of course.
for us to be able to understand each
My
other.
pleasure.
And I can't wait to see,
Yeah.
the fruits of your labor.
You too.
Man, this is amazing. This has been amazing. And so, guys, that wraps up another episode of Stranger Fruit. Not just any episode, but the final one. Today's conversation brought us a little closer to understanding the essence of fruit.
Yeah.
Not just something we receive, but something we become. The fruits of life, soul, and legacy. The sweetness of what we share with others, and the nourishment we offer to the world. To everyone who has been with us throughout this journey, thank you. Your presence, your listens, your reflections, whether heard or unspoken, has meant the world. Thank you for showing up, for tuning in, for growing with us. I hope that somewhere along the way, this podcast gave you something, whether it was comfort, clarity, curiosity, or just the courage to keep going. We hope Stranger Fruit has planted something meaningful in your life, a thought, a conversation, a pause, a seed. And the most sustainable fruit isn't just the ones planted here, it's what's continued to grow within you. So until we meet again, keep growing, and thank you forever for being part of the journey.
Beautiful. I like how you prepare all the statements.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Ryan. I had a great time.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. And sorry.
It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, man.
Yeah, man.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you. Yes, sir. Thank you. And I know you said you had to get out of here. So
I had a little bit. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I'm chilling.